You probably think you know the story of Rosa Parks, right? The tired seamstress who just had enough one day. But the version most of us learned in school, well, that's not even half the story. Let's get into the powerful, dangerous, and real story behind the icon. It all started with a single word. One word, spoken on a city bus in Montgomery, Alabama, that would light a fire and change the course of American history. So, who was the woman who actually said it? Was she really just a tired seamstress who had a bad day, like the story often goes? Or was she something more? A dedicated, strategic activist who'd been fighting for justice her whole life? That's what we're going to find out. Okay, so here's the story we all remember. December 1st, 1955. A quiet woman named Rosa Parks, worn out from a long day at work, refuses to give up her seat to a white man. It's usually painted as this spontaneous act of defiance that just happened to spark a movement. But that simple version? It leaves out the most important part of the story. To really get what she did, you first have to understand the world she was living in, the world she was fighting against. This wasn't just about a few rude people. It was about an entire system of oppression, and it was written right into the law. The system was called segregation. And let's be super clear here, this wasn't a custom. It wasn't just the way things were. It was enforced by law. That meant the police, the courts, and very often pure violence were used to keep this separation in place. It meant you ate in separate restaurants, you drink from separate and almost always inferior water fountains. Your kids were sent to separate, underfunded schools. And you were even born and died in separate hospitals. This wasn't some minor inconvenience. It was a constant, daily system of humiliation, all designed to enforce control. And this right here, this is the crucial part. The woman who challenged this whole system wasn't some accidental hero. Rosa Parks knew this world of humiliation inside and out because she had been strategically fighting against it for years. Just look at this. Her fight didn't start in 1955. Way back in 1943, she was the secretary for the local NAACP chapter. That very same year, she was thrown off a bus by a driver named James Blake. Now remember that name because, get this, he's the exact same driver who would have her arrested 12 years later. And just a few months before that day on the bus, she was at a workshop, specifically training on civil disobedience. So her saying no, that wasn't spontaneous. It was strategic. And just like her act was deliberate, the community's response was anything but spontaneous. It was a fast, coordinated, and absolutely brilliant organizational effort by people who were ready to go. I mean, try to wrap your head around this number. In the hours right after her arrest, with no internet, no social media, nothing like that, organizers printed 52,000 flyers. They were up all night using these old mimeograph machines, creating a whole network to spread the word for a one-day bus boycott. And here's why that was such a powerful idea. 75%. 3/4 of the people who paid to ride the buses in Montgomery were African American. This wasn't just a moral protest, it was an economic one. They knew that if they stopped riding, they could hit the city right where it hurt, the bottom line. They knew the power they had together. That one-day boycott was so incredibly successful that community leaders decided, hey, let's keep this going. But they needed a voice, a leader to really galvanize everyone. And they chose a new pastor in town, a charismatic and brilliant 26-year-old named Martin Luther King Jr. So yeah, that protest that was planned for a single Monday, it didn't stop. It turned into this epic struggle of endurance and commitment that would last for more than a year. 381 days. Can you even imagine? For over a year, tens of thousands of people walked miles and miles to work. They organized these incredibly complex carpools. They totally upended their daily lives, all for the cause of basic dignity. And it came at a huge cost. This wasn't some peaceful protest that the city just sat back and watched. Not at all. Dr. King's home was bombed. Rosa Parks and her husband both lost their jobs. Organizers were arrested on completely made-up charges. The system fought back, and it fought dirty. But they held on. While the boycott was squeezing the city's economy, lawyers were fighting the battle in the courts. And finally, on November 13th, 1956, the word came down from the U.S. Supreme Court. Segregation on public buses is unconstitutional. Victory. After 381 days of unimaginable sacrifice, they had won. The boycott was over. And the very next day, Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks boarded a city bus and, for the first time, they sat wherever they chose. But the victory in Montgomery was about so much more than just buses. It became the blueprint. It was solid proof that organized, nonviolent resistance could actually break the back of legal segregation. It was the spark that ignited the entire national civil rights movement. You can draw a straight line from that seat on the bus to the future of America. The strategy from Montgomery directly inspired the lunch counter sit-ins and the freedom rides. That momentum just kept building all the way to the March on Washington, and finally it led to the landmark laws that would legally tear down the whole Jim Crow system, the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. And what happened to Rosa Parks? Well, her work was far from over. She continued to fight for decades, working for Congressman John Conyers and co-founding an institute to help empower young people. Her life of service earned her the nation's absolute highest honors. And when she passed away, she became the first woman in American history to lie in honor in the U.S. Capitol Rotunda. Today, that bus sits in a museum. Her no is enshrined in history. But now we know it was never that simple. It was the result of a lifetime of struggle, a whole community of organizers, and a year of incredible sacrifice. So looking at that empty seat, the question isn't just about what she fought for back then. It's about what promises, born from her courage, do we still need to keep today.